Hi, today we are going to learn how to draw a leaf. So what you should have done, if you have not already done so, is download the leaf.ai file that's part of the Canvas assignment. And what you will see on this when you open it in Illustrator is this drawing. So imagine that you drew something in your sketchbook or on a piece of paper and you decided you wanted to turn it into a graphic. You had me scan it and you brought it into Illustrator, and you're using that scan as a foundation for doing your design. So over here, the leaf drawing is on this layer called Leaf Template, and on layer 2 is where we're going to do our drawing. And just in case your layout doesn't look like my layout, make sure you go to the top right and make sure you're in Layout View, and that will bring you to this layout. Just the tool we're going to use today is this curvature tool. It's a pretty nifty little tool. As we've discussed, Illustrator is about connecting the dots and deciding if you're connecting those dots with straight lines or curved lines. And the curvature tool is a pretty great way of telling it to connect our dots with curved lines. And when you draw using the curvature tool, the trick is to draw with as few anchor points as possible to get the cleanest lines. Otherwise they get jagged. So just a quick little primer here on how to use it before we do something like the leaf. Imagine you want to draw a little sun over here. What the curvature tool would do is let you do that. So we're going to turn off our fill. If your fill is on, make sure you go turn it off. That's the red line. And on the top, we're going to click and make a circle. And a circle is basically 4 anchor points connected with a curved line. So first, when we click our second anchor point, we've clicked our first and then our second, it's going to look like a straight line. But as we start moving into the third, Illustrator is going to draw this nifty red line for us, and it shows us that when we start clicking again, that it's going to turn all of that into curved lines. So if I go under the other one and I click again, I now have a nice little curve. I'm going to kind of go over here, match it up across from this one. And when I get back, we've now closed our path. We can see that because on the tool on the bottom right, we get that little circle. We now have a closed path, and that can be our sun. And then easily go up here and change our fill. And now we have a yellow sun. It's as easy as that to create curved lines. So, of course, you can certainly make a circle using the shape tool, but I want you to just get comfortable with the curvature tool. So there's our little sun. Just so you understand a little bit more about what it does, before we go into creating this leaf, we're going to actually just create a completely blobby shape on the bottom left here. You can create it however you want, but I want you again to just see how it works so you're going to understand going into the leaf what we're doing. So again, I'm going to go up here and turn off the fill, and I'm going to go with my curvature tool, and I'm going to click start, and I'm going to click again, and then it's going to make that curve. I'm going to click again, and you're going to see that if you go to the right, it's going to start curving around like a circle. If you go to the left, I want you to see it's going to kind of make this S shape. So you can see that the curve up here is going to change instead of being a circle. And I really am just clicking around and making a blob so that you can kind of see. I want you to try to make that S shape. So again, switching directions instead of continuing to go this way. If you go that way, you get the S, this way, that way, and so on until we get back and we got now this curvy S shape or blobby shape. And the reason I want you to do that is I want you to understand how to go back and forth between creating curves, going in and out of these anchor points using this tool, or how sometimes to change it into a sharp line. Because what you can see is this leaf actually doesn't just kind of curve around smoothly the way this does. It has these little sharp points here, 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 here. So these anchor points are curved. How do you change them into little points? Well, it's really easy. Still in that curve in the curvature tool, if I double click any of these points, they're going to turn into sharp points. So just go around and you can see that you can click them and it converts them into those sharp edges. And if I change my mind and want it to come back, if I double click it again, it's going to turn into a curve again. So it's kind of neat. You can switch back and forth between these sharp edges and the curves, which we're going to do as we draw the leaf. So try that. Certainly if we loved it, we could go and change it and fill it in. It is very useful when you are drawing this not to have the fill on as you do it because it's going to get in the way. I'll show you in a second why. And then when you're done with this, unless you want to keep it for some reason, you can just make sure the path is highlighted. I switched to my selection tool and I just hit delete. You don't have to do what I'm doing right now, but I just want to show you that it is a little bit annoying to draw a closed path like this with the fill on, because as you go, it starts filling in this weird way as it tries to figure out what you're trying to do, and that can get very, very distracting. So often when I draw with that tool, I turn off the fill so that I'm only thinking about the stroke on the outside, and then later I go in and I fill it. Okay, that said, let's go and try and draw the leaf. So I'm going to go with my curve tool. I'm going to turn off the fill. I've got my black stroke, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger just so I can see it. So I've made a 3-point stroke. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up, and I'm going to start at the very top, and I'm going to click. And then I'm going to go to the next anchor point. And remember, you want to use as few anchor points as possible. So when you see a curve like this, and it's continuous and it never changes direction, go all the way till the end till you see something change direction and click. Now, because we want this to curve out, what I'm going to actually do is go back up here. I haven't clicked yet. I'm going to go right into the middle of this path, and I'm going to pull it out. And when I do that, that's going to turn it into a curve I have control over. And that's great. So now I've got this nice curve. Now I want this point, to be a point instead of a curve. You can see if I were to go and start drawing again, it's going to turn this one. This one is still seen as a curved anchor point. So I'm going to double click it. And we now know double clicking changes that to a straight anchor point. And I'm going to go to the top of this, and I'm going to, when I click, I'm going to actually double click, and that's also going to make that one a straight anchor point. Now I'm going to click to the end of this curve till it changes direction all the way down. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to take my curvature tool, and I'm going to go back right into the middle of that line again, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag it out till it matches the curve and let go. And then I'm going to head off to this next one, but ooh, I can see if I do that, this is going to be a curved line coming out of that anchor point and not a straight one. So I'm going to double click that one to change it. Now it's not going to curve coming out. And I'm going to follow the end of that curve till I find a nice stopping point where it changes direction, and I'm going to click, go to the middle, and drag up. Again, now I want this to be a pointy anchor point. Double click it, go all the way to the end of that curve, click, drag that out, double click. And again, this is also going to be another pointy one. Double click when I make it. Click. Drag it out. Double click. Click. Drag it out. Double click. And I'm going to skip the stem. We're going to go and draw that shape separately. So click, drag it down. Go back to this one. It's going to change direction, so I'll double click it to make it a point. Click, drag it down, double click. And I'm going to keep that process up all the way to the end. Double click, and I double clicked again just automatically because I want that to be a straight line. Double click. Double click. Double click on that one, double click on the next one, and then I'm going to go all the way back to the starting point. I know I've now gone to close my path because I've got the little circle on the bottom of my tool pops up. That means the path is closed. I've come back to where I'm started from, which is super important for fills. You have to close your path in order for them to work. And I can see that when I click on that one, it's a curved line, but I want it to be a point. I'm going to double click it so that it comes to a point and just pull this guy back out again. Pull it a little far. This does not have to be exact. And now I've got the outline of my leaf. If you've not already done so, you should save that wherever you want to save it, on your desktops or in your documents folder, wherever you're saving your Illustrator files. You want to save that. I'm going to save this as leaf example so that I don't write over the original. And hit OK, and now we're back. Now we're going to go and create, if we've got our nice leaf, we are going to go in and create this face. So you could do that a number of ways. I'm going to start with the mouth. I'm zooming all the way in, pushing out on my touchpad so that I can see it. And we are starting a new path here, so I want to make sure I deselect the exterior path, the leaf, by clicking off it before I go in and start a new path, right? So I definitely wanted to, here it's still selected, make sure I go with my selection tool and just click into a blank spot. Now nothing is selected and I can zoom in. And I'm going to start just by making this curved line. You should now know how to do that. I'm going in with my pen tool, my curvature tool, click and drag down. And again, if I were to just start trying to go over here right now to do the little curves on the side of the mouth, I have a little bit of a problem because it would continue on this path. So I want to get out of this tool, but it's following me everywhere I go. The way to do that is just hit the escape key on your keyboard, and then when you move your tool again, it'll go away. It'll stop being active. I'm going to click and deselect that by going with my selection tool and just clicking in a blank area. And then I'll go back with my curvature tool and I'll add the side mouth. And again, hit escape to get out of the tool so that it'll leave me alone. Go with my selection tool and click off it. And go with my curvature tool again and make the other side mouth. Hit escape to get out of it. Stop following me, man. And now nothing is selected. Okay. Then I am going to make these eyeballs. Now, we've made the eyeballs before. This is that egg shape again that we made with the face at the beginning. So how do I do that? Do you remember? Well, I will remind you. For that, I'm going to actually just go and draw a circle. I'm going to go with over to my shape tool and choose the ellipse. And I am going to draw a circle. I like drawing from the inside of circles out. To make it a circle, I hit the Shift key. To draw from the inside out, I'm holding down the Option key. So I'm holding down Shift and Option, and I'm going to kind of drag out to get my eyeball. Now, to make that an egg shape, I have to move this one anchor point up here, right? This guy on the top. And it may be that I want to move a couple of the other ones. We'll see. But to move just one anchor point, how do you do that again? Well, that's this other selection tool. Now remember, if you're going straight from having a whole path selected, and you go to the direct selection tool, I can see here that all my anchor points are still selected, which means it's going to be, I won't be able to move just one. And I know they're all selected because they're showing up as bright red. So I have to deselect the path so I can go back in and grab just one, or alternately, I can double click the one anchor point I want, and that will select that one and deselect the others. And now I can just drag that guy up, and I've got my egg shape. I'll drag this guy in a little bit too. Perfect. Go with my selection tool, click off it, and I'm going to go make this other egg on this other side. So back to my ellipse tool, I get to practice again, pretty excited. Shift, Option, drag out, go to my direct selection tool, but I now can see all of these anchor points are selected and I want to move just one of them. So I'm just going to double click the top one, or alternately, you could click off it and then hover back on it to go grab the one you want. Either way, you're going to get the one anchor point you want and drag that up to be my other egg. Now I got this weird situation. What's this? What do I do to fix this? You actually have a number of choices. I can think of two, but I am going to choose the we're going to start filling this in. So I think when we start filling our shapes, you maybe will be able to figure out how to get rid of that in an easy way. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And now I'm going to start coloring this guy in. How do you color in Illustrator? It's the fill. So I'm going to go back to my direct selection tool. And I'm going to click on my leaf. And I'm going to fill it a color. I'm going to go with a standard color. I'm sure some of you will choose something different, but I'll choose this nice leafy green, and it will fill in my shape now, because remember when we drew it, we turned off the fill. And now the eyeballs are still not filled, so I'm going to have to go back and do that. I'm going to click, make sure my selection tool is selected, click off it, and select my first eyeball. And I'm going to, it's right now, the reason you can see this is because there is no fill. So if I fill it, and I fill it white, and I go to my other guy, and I fill that guy white, that line is going to disappear because the white as a color is going to fill and you won't be able to see the other one. Now they're in the wrong order, and we've talked about order matters, right? So what we can do is we want this guy to go behind this guy, if you want to be authentic to the original drawing. And there's a couple of ways to do that. One is to click it and just go up to the object and arrange and send it backward. What that's going to do is, before I do it, here are all the paths I drew, right? Here's the guy I'm on. And when I send it backwards, it's going to bump this guy down 1 and bring it underneath. So object, arrange, send backward. Boom. Now this guy is underneath this guy, and the line is hidden. Or alternately, you can drag these paths around just like you drag layers in Photoshop. Now I want little eyeballs in the middle. How do you draw the little eyeballs? Well, circle tool, fill. I'm going to make my stroke small, and I'm just going to zoom in and draw a little eyeball. And if you want an identical eyeball, I'm going to zoom all the way in. I'm going to go with my selection tool. I'm going to hit the Option key. The Option key lets me make a copy, and I can drag that same eyeball over here, or pupil I should say, and I now have a little eyeball. I'm going to leave it that you guys, using the curvature tool, are going to figure out how to create this shape without watching me and fill it in and get it behind the leaf. Now for those of you who want, I'm going to add one little thing. It's optional before I let you go to do your own stem. But I'm going to zoom all the way in. These lines cut off really abruptly. And if I want them to come to a little point, I wonder how I would do that. Well, how do you bring things to a point? Does anybody remember? You in the back, good answer. It's the width tool. So we use that on that first day where you can change the width of paths. I'm going to go right to the end, and I can now make these come to little points by using my width tool. And that makes it just a little bit cuter. With the way that those are drawn, instead of it being a sharp line. But I'm going to leave you to do that last piece and figure it out on your own as a little puzzle. And then when you're done, make sure you save it. And then go Save As. And you will save an EPS version using the artboards. And that is what you will hand in to me. Good luck with the stem. Watch the video again if you got confused, and make yourself a really cute leaf. Extra credit if you give some background, other elements to it and play with it. The other thing before I actually go is you can turn off that scan. I can see that the scan is showing up a little bit around the edges. And in the end, we don't like our scans to show up. They're just for drawing purposes. So if you click the button on the layer with the template and make the scan go away before you hand it in, it'll look much better. So draw your own stem. Bonus, extra credit points if you can add other natural elements around it. Hand it in as an EPS, and good luck.